Let's get things started. This hand of mine glows with an awesome power.
Welcome back to the G Gundam podcast, because I don't know how to name anything anymore. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drak. I hope everybody's had an awesome couple of weeks, because we actually did have to take a week-long break. But also, let me, of course, introduce my co-host here, my wife, Andrea. How you doing, Andrea?
Good.
All right. Yeah, we probably better address this really quick. We actually took a week off because I couldn't do a podcast. My voice was pretty much shot, and Andrea is my witness here. She knows that my voice was shot. So we actually held off for a week to let me recuperate, and we didn't watch a DVD until I was ready to go. But we are back, and we have since watched more episodes 21 through 24, in fact, which are basically wrapping up the Guyana Highlands arc. So at that point, wow, I almost went back into our old habit of going in like what DVD was the best. But no, we're gonna save that for the end. Let's go ahead and jump right into... I'm also happy to say you are halfway through this series. Officially, you are halfway through this series. So now that you've seen kind of the first half, are you excited for, well, your thoughts on the first half, but are you excited for the second half?
I'm excited for the second half.
You've liked what you've seen so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's actually get into this. Like I said, the episodes that we watched basically wrap up the Guyana Highlands arc and set things up for the Gundam Fight Final Round. So with that being said, let's go into episode 21. The final battle approaches, only 3 days away. So this technically is a slow episode, simply because it's doing build up to the final clashes. So this is kind of the first point where we start hearing, yeah, the final battle's coming. It's 3 days away. You have to be in Neo Hong Kong for the final round, or your Gundam is disqualified. So if you do not head to Neo Hong Kong to participate, your Gundam does not get to participate, period, even though it's survived this long. And so we get to see, at first, this big onslaught of Gundams that we've never seen before start heading to Neo Hong Kong. Specifically, we see Neo Greece's Zeus Gundam. We also see Neo Holland's Nether Gundam, which is just basically a giant whirlwind, or a giant windmill. How did you like the appearance of Nether Gundam and Zeus Gundam?
Zeus Gundam was cool.
It was cool. The Nether Gundam, not so much.
Yeah,
it was a giant windmill Gundam.
Yeah, but that's kind of...
But we also got to see Neo Norway's Viking Gundam. Yeah, not really out of the question. That's kind of how you would think it would look. I would actually dare say the silliest was probably Neo Spain's. Oh crap! I can't. I think it was called Matador Gundam.
Yeah,
in Japanese, but I think we call it Tauros Gundam.
Probably.
So it's just basically a giant bull's head for the midsection. Like, that's probably the silliest we saw. But yeah, we start to see a lot of these guys heading out, but Domon and crew are still technically in the Guyana Highlands. In fact, Domon is no longer with any of them. He has gone off to train on his own. He is further confused about how to unlock his super mode, because he's seen all of these interesting moments where saving the girls is the thing that brought his super mode out. Saving George is the one that unlocked the super mode. And so he's even more confused and goes off to train in a cave somewhere, while the other four are getting ready to go, but the fighters are kind of refusing. George says he's there to protect Rain, because Rain's kind of on her own right now. Chibity's there because he is.
He's there.
I think the premise here is that, like, because George and him kind of have a rivalry at this point. I almost kind of wonder if the dub kind of screwed up here, and he was just like, well, I can't leave her alone with this guy, kind of thing. And so that's why Chibity's there. Saisaishi's there because he loves his bro. And Argo, yeah, we're not sure why Argo's there because, he's not in charge. Basically, Nastasha, I forgot that they actually pronounce it in the dub that way. Nastasha, basically is just there, and Argo's with her. In fact, we got to have a nice little campfire moment between her and Argo, basically talking about how, Domon needs to get to the final battle because he wants to have his final showdown with Domon. All the while, though, the Dark Army starts encroaching on their position. So they start coming in from land, sea, and air to take out the remaining Shuffle Alliance members, all while Domon is very frustrated that he still cannot unlock the super mode. And so let's get into that a little bit. The slow buildup of troops to take out the other four, and Domon's not there, which means Shining Gundam is useless, kind of. So what did you think of that buildup? Just, the four Shuffle Alliance members waiting for Domon and maybe protecting Rain, and then the Dark Army just kind of slowly encroaches on them.
Well, it was a slow build-up.
Yeah, it was slow. It was a slow episode.
It's like kind of feels like one of those filler episodes that, okay, I guess if it had a little more humor in it, it probably would have made up for that.
Yeah, this didn't really do a whole lot to push the episode forward. I would say the funnier moment was probably between Nastasha and Argo. As well as, the Chibity George kind of argument about who's going to protect Rain. That was kind of funny. And I also should say that aside from Argo, all of the, so George, Chibity, and Saisaishi have sent their crews on ahead to go to Neo Hong Kong. So they are on their own. They have their Gundams, but they are on their own.
I did love that moment when George was, like, trying to find Domon and he finds Rain fixing the
where she gets mad at him because, like, you would think he walked in on her changing, but no, it's, how dare you look at the secrets of a Gundam being repaired. And then he's like, whoa.
Oh, sorry.
What would he have seen? Because she was working on the head section, and he's seen the head section transform, so I don't know where he would be breaking any rules, but that's George. That's George. I honestly don't know what the crap they were thinking there, but let's cut back to Domon, who is in the cave just beating all of the cave senseless because he's seeing nothing but Master Asia taunting him. What he doesn't know is that our lovely little stalker Schwarzbruder is there with him, and he decides to push the training along because he's not happy with where Domon is. He thinks he's hit a slump. So he decides to edge him forward by challenging him to a Gundam fight match.
Oh, yeah.
Without the Shining Gundam. Well, I mean, we did say that he bullied Domon before. This would be the ultimate taking your lunch money. Taking your giant mobile suit and fighting a human. So, yeah, that was a thing, and he starts wrecking the cave.
And how could he fight in such a tight space like that? Unless he somehow magically shrunk his Gundam down.
Reasons. I couldn't tell you. I had the same kind of confusion. But he then this pivotal moment happens of, like, he says, "I'm going to kill you, Domon," which somehow makes Domon just kind of clear his mind and think about, okay, I'm going to die. And so he starts thinking about those he cares about and takes out the sword and deflects Shadow Gundam's giant tonfa with little to no effort.
I am surprised that sword did not break by then.
Right? But it's supposed to show, like, this whole, this is maybe the power you're looking for, Domon, because now that he's got this clear head, or rather he's kind of embraced the fact that he's going to die, he has now gained a new strength, which he abruptly abandons, because it's Domon and he has to do everything angrily, right? At that point, Master kind of comes in to lead the Dark Army, and they are, like, all four of the other Gundams are pinned, up until Domon slices the waterfall, comes out, and pilots the Shining Gundam, and at that point, promptly kind of loses to Master Asia. He's still not powerful enough to fight Master Asia, and Schwartz is saying that because he lost his moment of cool-headedness, what he calls it is a serene state of mind. Because he lost his serene state of mind, he lost the Master Asia. So at that point, that's pretty much the episode here. We get Shining Gundam horribly damaged from the fight with Master. Also, poor Bolt Gundam had its arm ripped off again by Master Asia.
Poor Argo has to deal with
Argo's getting his karmic comeuppance after he ripped off Domon's arm. Because, A, he ripped his own arm off to fight against Saishaishi, and now Master Asia just comes up to him and goes, and just rips his arm off.
And this is the episode that Rain gets into the...
Oh, yeah, and we should probably point that out. It's the second time she dons her fight suit, and it's still just as silly. She still gets her butt kicked, and part of the damage going into this fight was also because Rain, like, she just is not a proficient fighter. She's a good a good mechanic, but she's not a proficient fighter in the Shining Gundam. So she had to be backed up by all the other 4 Shuffle Alliance members. But yep, we got to see that. We got to see that again. And I love the fact that when she starts wearing the fight suit again, you just kind of went, I
know.
Especially now, like she does moans and stuff like that makes it really sound like she's in the throes of rapture by having that fight suit put on.
I can't imagine.
Oh my gosh. That like, you can't even hide it at that point. That's not even pain, in my opinion. So yeah, we had that moment, and then Domon takes over because Rain passed out due to her basically taking a beating. Final thoughts on this one. I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm not going to rate it that hard because it is a build-up episode. It does have good moments. It does, like, we do have the moment with Schwartz where he's trying to teach Domon to use a serene state of mind. And that is a cool moment to see that sword deflect a giant tonfa coming at it. And it's so at this point, I'm probably not going to give it less than maybe like a 2.5 or a 3 because it is a build-up episode and it's very clearly displayed as a build-up episode. So what are your final thoughts on the final battle approaches only 3 days away?
I would give it a 2.5.
2.5, yeah. It's kind of halfway there. It's very clearly building up to something. So it's kind of hard to fault it for anything. And it does, and regardless, it does have good moments, despite you face palming because Rain's fight suit came back out. And I love the emphasis that even though, like, when we see Domon in the fight suit and it emphasizes his butt, no, instead the fight suit goes into Rain's butt to form like this this bikini stripper swimsuit. Is that
at least hers is a lot better than George's look.
Oh, jeez,
because you know, at least it's black and pink, whereas George's is like white and red.
Well, George's just looks awkward and cringy compared to that. I'll admit, there's a cringe factor with how Rain's looks.
Yeah.
But most of that is just because you see her put the fight suit on. Yeah. And that's what creates the cringe factor. Is that it doesn't, again, I'm going to die on this hill. She does not look like she's in pain. She looks like she's enjoying it. So, sorry, just had to be said. So yeah, 2.5 from both of us. Let's go into episode 22, Breakthrough, Warriors Strong Ties. So this is when we actually start to see the beginning attack of the Dark Gundam, including a new unit, which is... I wish they had a better name for this, but it's called a Gundam Head, where basically these snake-like giant Gundam heads come out of the ground, and I don't know if you noticed this, but in later episodes, they actually become like snakes, where the face mask kind of goes away and they have big old snake fangs, as well as lasers and things like that. So we have those Gundam heads now kind of blocking people from leaving. So remember... Argo's crew is still there, along with the Shuffle Alliance members. They can't leave as long as these Gundam heads are there to shoot them down. And so at that point, this becomes a really big problem, one that is even worse amplified because Domon's suit is basically trashed. I would actually dare say the fight with Master has trashed it even more. Argo's Gundam is out of commission because they had to repair the arm. And so at that point, they are few and far between. They have Dragon Gundam, Maxter Gundam, and Rose Gundam to be able to help fend off the Dark Army forces. But that's about it. Like, thankfully, Bolt Gundam is back in action pretty quick.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it's not good. Like they already say at the beginning of the episode, it's going to take half a day to repair Domon's Shining Gundam.
Half a day. That sounds.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of dumb, but at the same time, it's just like, okay, well, now we have stakes set. Like they have to hold off Master and the Dark Army and the Dark Gundam for at least 12 hours while Rain and Domon repair the Shining Gundam. Although I'm kind of surprised that Neo Russia didn't at least offer one mechanic to help out. I get it, secrets of the Gundam and all that, but I think this is an extraordinary enough circumstance that it's okay. Like, just make the dude sign a non-disclosure agreement, you know? I don't understand why they didn't have like extra Neo Russia mechanics helping with the Shining Gundam, because if it was gonna take half a day with two people, just think if you had like the amount of mechanics that worked on Bolt Gundam's arm, because that took hours. So at that point, you could cut that down to maybe like 1 to 2 hours. Did you not think that was weird?
That was weird.
Yeah, like Nastasha didn't think that it would be prudent to do that, but no, they basically say Domon and Rain, good luck, and send them on their way. While Nastasha comes up with a type of strategy. I don't want to say it was a flawless strategy, but basically having the Gundam split up into different areas to take on the waves of Dark Army that are coming. However, Schwartz also offers an additional element to this because he has a signal flare that he wants to put somewhere. And nobody really understands what that's for, but they let him do it anyway, kind of thing. So we have a little bit of a lull happen before the fight starts to begin, where we start to go into the repairs with Domon and Rain. Really quick though, what did you think of Nastasha's strategy? Did you see a problem with it at all? Were you worried about what Schwartz was trying to do?
No, not really.
I'll admit, I forgot it was a signal flare that he put up there. I always thought it was like a bomb or something.
I thought they said it was a signal flare.
They did, and I forgot. I completely forgot.
Oh, okay, because I wouldn't have.
I for some reason, every time I go back to the series, I always think it's like a bomb, because and probably part of that is because everything that Shadow Gundam has used up in this until this point is like ninja tools, so explosions, smoke screens, things like that. But yeah, I always thought it was a bomb for some reason. But what did you think of the strategy that they had?
Well, it was a.
And I guess we should explain it really quick. One of the quadrants is defended by Maxter and Rose, and then two other quadrants are... One was supposed to be defended by Shadow Gundam and Dragon Gundam, but Schwartz believes in his plan and goes to enact it. So it's Dragon Gundam in this one area, and then Bolt Gundam is in another area, just to hold off the enemy until Shining Gundam can be repaired.
I would say that was probably the only strategy you could come up with, you know...
See, the thing that would worry me is, and granted, they also did an addition of like setting up a minefield, but they had like this whole flank below, like in the southeastern end of the ship that wasn't covered, and I can't help but wonder, why did Master Asia not take advantage of that? Because that would have been like a perfect flanking, but he never does. So that was like my only problem with the strategy. Otherwise, it did kind of make sense. Like Dragon Gundam has proven at this point that he could take on multiple Dark Army mobile suits. Bolt Gundam can do that as well. Maxter and Rose, not really. Like the Rose bits would probably be a very helpful thing for the aerial units, but Maxter, he probably would be best.
I mean,
for the
I
ground
guess
units.
if you would have spread out, like, you know, if you had like two Gundams in one area, and we have
and they were supposed to put Shadow Gundam with Dragon Gundam to kind of fuel that.
Other than that, they could have just all spread out like a big, huge, like they take a little section, but they're not clumped, like two are clumped together in one area.
My only big worry was, again, that southeastern section, because nobody was guarding that. And I don't think that I don't know, maybe they put a minefield there. I'd have to go back and watch the episode again. Maybe it was water. I don't know. But with that being said, we go to Domon and Rain, who are repairing. But unfortunately, because of a lot of the beating that Rain took, she's not doing so hot. She's, in fact, got a fever. She's, in fact, feeling sick. And she's trying to do repairs on the Gundam along with Domon, but is losing strength fast. And eventually gets to a point where Domon just tells her to sit down and to guide him into repairing the Shining Gundam as best as he can. Because he's not a mechanic. Like, he knows a little bit, but I'm pretty sure Rain was the brains behind maintaining the Shining Gundam. For crying out loud, her dad designed it. So, did you think... What did you think about these moments? Were they endearing to you? Did they get annoying?
It seemed like it was nice, but at the same time awkward at the same time, because you see their relationship throughout the whole entire thing. Like, he just seems like he's not interested in this whole thing, and then there's those few moments where he's like, oh, I so care about you, and then
it's one of those things where, like we've seen in previous episodes, like he most of the time shows he doesn't care, but then you have those rare moments of like, I beg you, please don't kill her, kind of thing, and that's kind of how this plays off, is that it's still more ups and downs in their relationship. And what makes it worse is that we're flashing back to Dragon Gundam fighting Dark Army, Bolt Gundam fighting Dark Army, and them struggling, and so it's just like, could you guys maybe not have the mushy moment and repair the Shining Gundam, because, crap is coming and it's going to kill us all? But no, that's pretty much how it goes. Eventually, they do get Shining Gundam repaired. At that point, Rain has passed out. And I should also mention this one aspect, because I forgot to. When she agrees to Domon's plan of, like, she'll sit down and guide him to repair the Shining Gundam, she makes him promise that he's not going to abandon her. He's not going to just leave her somewhere to go fight. Because as far as she is concerned, this is their Gundam. They have put their heart and soul, their blood, sweat, and tears into this Gundam. And he does agree. It's too bad he doesn't follow that. Well, she is sick. At that point, I'm almost on Domon's side here. Like, it doesn't make sense for her to be in the cockpit when you're going to go off and fight Master Asia. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if she's sick, so she leaves her in the care of Nastasha, while he pilots the Shining Gundam to go help the others. But yeah, it's not one of those times where I'm on Rain's side. Like, I know that she's pissed that he broke a promise, but it's one of those promises I think is worth breaking.
Well, he cares about her, that he wants her to be safe. That's all that matters.
Yes. So Domon joins the fight, except Domon is kind of back to what he's usually doing. He hasn't taken Schwartz's advice at all, and he's thoroughly convinced that if he gets angry, that will unlock the super mode. This has been his philosophy this entire time. If he gets angrier, he will unlock the super mode. Master Asia's kind of caught on to this and is trying to egg him on to get him angrier, because it might be advantageous for him. And Schwartz is screaming at him, please do it my way. We've done it your way. It doesn't work. That's kind of how it comes off to me, is like, you saw how much power you gained in the cave. Why are we still going to the method that hasn't worked? The method that's gotten you in trouble. The method that made you lose to Schwartz. So, yeah. Did you want to smack Domon for this? Like, he goes back to old ways, and we know that the old ways don't work as viewers.
Yeah, I mean, they could work, but it would only take him so far until it gets to a point where...
And what makes it worse is Master Asia's playing into it. So you know that Master that Master Asia wants him to get angry. So you know that it's what Master wants, and ergo not what's gonna be what wins it. Like, he's gonna utilize it. So at that point, it's like, would you please listen to the masked man from Germany that wears the German flag as his fight suit? Could you please listen to him? And no. And that's pretty much, I believe, how it ends, is that, actually, I should point out the end of the strategy. When Master joins the fight, he finds Schwartz's flare. And he's like, oh, well, I'm guessing this is a mine, and destroys it, which was a signal for Schwartz to then shred the nearby waterfall to flood the area and get rid of all the Dark Army in that. So, yeah, Schwartz turned out to be right. Like, he used his ultimate ability, the Shadow Tornado, whatever he wanted to call it, and destroyed the waterfall, and that cleared the battlefield.
Yeah, and we were like, ooh, it's a wonderful pirouette.
It's a wonderful ballet pirouette, which is also accompanied by Master eventually doing a battle pirouette. Yeah, no, it was actually a really cool moment. I like the fact that when he linked his hands together and the tonfas came out, almost to look like they were going to shoot something, but no, then he did the spin. I like the strategy there, because eventually it did make sense. If you can't, if the odds are so much in your favor, then you have to use something to get the odds back into balance. And in this case, he used nature to do it. Nature basically cleared the battlefield and got rid of all the excess Dark Army, while also saving the others to take care of to take care of themselves and get to higher ground. So I actually agree now with the strategy that he was doing. It was actually really well thought out. I would actually dare say Schwartz is probably a better strategist than Nastasha. Am I wrong? Am I wrong about that? And that's pretty much the kind of the ending of this episode. It kind of bleeds into the next one, but final thoughts on Breakthrough Warriors Strong Ties. I personally wouldn't give it higher than maybe a 3, because this is still another build-up episode. This is building into the tension of the circumstances, because they have this overwhelming circumstances that they can't leave, and they still have to get to the final round. So it's still building up at this point. But I will at least give it a 3 or so for some of the good character moments that we got between the Shuffle Alliance members, with Schwartz coming up with his strategy, with Rain and Domon. It was pretty good. It was pretty good as far as character development. Way better than the previous one.
I would agree. I would give it a 3.
Yeah, it's just kind of a build-up thing. I can't really fault it. So moving into episode 23, Destined Battle, Domon versus the Dark Gundam. And I should point out that at the end of that episode, the Dark Gundam surfaced again, not in the weird turtle form, but just in a vine-like form. But we can see Kyoji on the shoulder. So again, Domon's adopting the philosophy of, if I just get mad, then I can win this fight. He's losing horribly. Like, Master's defeating him every which way and up. He's just doing damage to the Shining Gundam. Schwartz eventually steps in and throws a flash grenade and takes Domon back to the cave. And so we get to have like this cool moment of tension with Master Asia, like, thoroughly convinced he's going to win, and Schwartz trying to teach Domon why he was doing what he did. Trying to teach him that if you don't have a serene state of mind, you will not be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And Domon, like, at this point just doesn't trust him in the slightest. He thinks anger is the way to go, which makes Domon just look like a dumbass.
Oh, yes.
This entire time. Like, this is one of my complaints with Domon as a character. He's very thick-headed. It takes a while to get him to convince him of anything, which is funny because, like, 80% of martial arts is calming your mind and having that serene state so you can think clearly, use your energy effectively, and take down your opponent. And he's not doing any of that. He's instead going down the path of the dark side. Your anger will lead to more strength, but unfortunately it also leads to what we kind of guessed was Master Asia's strategy, him wasting his energy and therefore just making more damage happen to the Shining Gundam. But we get to have another really cool moment of just trying to get Domon to think back in the cave, like what he was thinking of. All of those serene thoughts, calming his mind. And immediately him kind of pointing out, like, if you can't be as cool and clear as this water that's dripping off of our mobile suits, then you can't master the super mode. So at that point, Schwartz basically just leaves him and just like, okay, do it how you want to do it. I can't force you to do it this way. But Domon isn't really listening. He goes back. He's now like, he's so mad at Master Asia, he goes kind of full berserker, and it does unlock the super mode, but Master kind of schools him the entire time. He's just running out of energy. And when Master goes in for a killing blow, Schwartz steps in again and takes the blow for him, which exposes the cockpit, and you could already see Schwartz is not in good shape from the darkness finger he took in the chest kind of thing. Thankfully at that point, that kind of wakes Domon up, and he realizes that what he's doing isn't working, and he then clears his mind and actually like in fact, one of my favorite moments is he takes Master Asia's up until this point, Master Asia's been like choking him with the beam sash. He then takes the beam sash, kind of wraps it around himself, and gets into like a basic martial arts pose to breathe in and breathe out. And they still have like these green things representing the beam sash he took during this whole fight. But he decides to do this. He then starts glowing gold along with his Shining Gundam. It's not just that the super mode comes out. It is straight up gold at this point. So it's kind of like a supersonic moment, right?
Yep.
He's unlocked a whole new level of power, which I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it because it's not really mentioned in the series. The series calls it hyper mode. So he enters into this hyper mode, which magnifies his abilities and pisses off Master to no end. Master's so mad that he's attained this power and abruptly gets schooled by Domon. Like, I love one of the moments where, you know, when Domon was super pissed, how he was kind of like dodging him like a ballerina. And then he tries to do that in the hyper mode and immediately, boom, like right at his cheek. He's like, oh, like it was out of nowhere. I thought that was a really cool moment. And then you got to see like how Domon was so much faster than him. And he just couldn't comprehend it. Like, how on earth, I am the undefeated of the East. How on earth can he be this strong? All the while, Domon is basically like he's repeating poses and things like that. Uruken, Seiken, you know, he's kicking his ass ultimately. And it's kind of a glorious thing to see, is eventually the apprentice or the pupil starts to surpass the master in this weird way. And it's kind of weird also because you'd think Master would have figured this out. Nothing? No thoughts on this?
No, I thought it was just pretty cool. Just watching him.
Did you like that? Did you like that moment?
Get his butt kicked.
Yeah.
So
did you like the whole moment of trying to reach that hyper mode, like the beam, like bringing the beam sash in and just going, and then just kind of regaining it?
Oh yeah.
Did you like the whole moment where he like went into this ninja stance and then opened his eyes and boom, like it gets all strobe lighty?
Yeah, just like the Avatar thing.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like the Avatar state.
Yeah.
And then eventually, after he schools Master, he then uses his shining finger on the Dark Gundam and destroys it, along with the other Gundam heads in the area. Now, we have to go back to the first episode a little bit because I didn't want to do this plot until we got a little bit closer to it. Along with all the Gundams heading to Neo Hong Kong, Neo Japan has actually been creating a upgrade Gundam for Domon to use in the final battle, called the Burning Gundam, or appropriately in the Japanese translation, God Gundam. This is why I like Devil Gundam in the Japanese translation, because you had Devil Gundam versus God Gundam kind of thing. And so the whole debate here is whether or not to send Domon this burning Gundam before the final round, to send it to him before he gets to Neo Hong Kong to maybe help him out in the fight against the Dark Gundam. It eventually does get approved, and while the Dark Gundam is blowing up all around us, we see the Sakura Blossom ship kind of land in the Guyana Highlands, and Domon's like, what the heck is that? It looks like it's from Neo Japan, and that's abruptly where this episode ends. The reason I kept this plot thread back is because it doesn't really matter until the previous, or the last two episodes. So that being said, what did you think of Breakthrough Warrior Strong Ties?
I would say I'd probably give it a 4.
This would be a 4 for me as well.
Because it had a lot of
Because you get a payoff a little bit of, like, you've had that first initial clash with Master, then you have Domon kind of come into his own and become the Master himself. All the while, you get to see Master just kind of unhinge a little bit. Like, he's been this cool as a cucumber this entire time, although a schlocky cucumber. But now he's like freaking out. Like, how on earth can my student surpass me? Kind of deal, which is unnerving to watch.
Jeez, it makes it sound like, why does he care? Because he's been pretty much betrayed Domon. It's like, why do you care if he surpasses you, man?
Exactly. And so at that point, it becomes like the lines are clearly drawn. Like the Master Asia is the villain. He's only pursuing power, whereas Schwartz just wants to help Domon move further. So at that point, I like how they did that. I like that when we get this realization, it becomes an epic moment for Domon as a character, and in turn is what destroys the Dark Gundam and helps him get past all of the apprehensions that Domon has had. So that's what allows for him to destroy the Dark Gundam and to defeat his master. So I would also give it a 4 out of 5. I think this was a really good one. Moving on into the last episode that we had, or actually, sorry, I said the wrong episode. It was Destined Battle, Domon versus the Dark Gundam. So 4 out of 5 for that one. And then we get into episode 24, Bright New Star, The Birth of the Burning Gundam. Japanese translation, The Birth of the God Gundam. I'm sorry, I love both names. Both names work. Shining and Burning and Shining and God Gundam. They both really work. So the 4 members of the Shuffle Alliance have long since left for Neo Hong Kong. And actually, this episode starts up with them arriving. So Maxter arrives. I now officially want to call Dragon Gundam Bugs Bunny Gundam because he comes in from underground. And Rose Gundam has been there the whole time, I guess. And Argo is just is on his way, kind of thing, because they stayed behind as long as they possibly could before they had to go. And yeah, so they're kind of just barely arriving with Rain in tow, but everybody else is kind of there, and they're all waiting for Domon to get there, because now it's not just it's not days, it's hours. He has hours to get there to be able to check in for this. And they kind of cut back after that to the Guyana Highlands and pretty much where the other episode left off. This capsule has landed. Domon really doesn't know what's in it. He's guessing that it's the new Gundam they've been talking about, but he starts to go over there, and Master, who is now completely unhinged, I would almost say like he's kind of crazed or insane, he tries to prevent Domon from getting there, from getting whatever was in there, so that he can defeat this upstart pupil kind of thing. And the other thing I also like about this is you kind of saw it in the previous episode, but now his hair is no longer gray. His hair goes like straight white, almost like he's kind of aging in front of us because of his craze, his not being able to acknowledge Domon's strength. And so we kind of get into this chase, for lack of a better term, where Domon tries to deflect Master's attacks, but ultimately he has to sacrifice the Shining Gundam. So you have this moment where one of Master's hands goes right through the Shining Gundam, and it's kind of gruesome to look at, What doesn't help that concept at all is they actually show the back, and the claw-like hands that Master Gundam has are dripping with oil. It's like, ooh, you know, that's kind of...
I'm surprised it's not just like black oil or something.
Yeah, they kept it brown, I'm guessing, just so that people could tell what it was. But it almost kind of looks like blood, too. And so it's like, oh, wow, that could have actually been a fatality. Domon gets out of the Shining Gundam and just goes on foot. He's like, I've got to get there. In the meantime, we go back to Neo Hong Kong. The Neo Japan delegation has arrived with Major Ulube, Minister Karato, and Dr. Mikamura, who has met up with Rain, Nastasha, and Argo, and they are trying to keep track of where Domon is to see if maybe he could still make it. Karato is flipping out right now because his representative is not there, and Ulube still kind of has faith in Domon that he'll be able to do it. Rain is just hoping beyond hope that he will, kind of thing. She's pretty much lady in waiting mode at this point.
Well, yeah, if they haven't sent the new Gundam to Domon, he probably would have never made it.
Yeah, ultimately he never would have because of the damage that Shining Gundam took. Ultimately, Domon does get to the Burning Gundam, except now we have a new problem. It's not moving. For some reason, and this is one of the big plot holes as far as I am concerned. I get why it's there. It's meant to build tension, but they basically say that in order to start this new Burning Gundam, it has to download Shining Gundam's battle data. And here's my problem with that. Why on earth have you not been keeping backups of Shining Gundam's battle data, both for Domon as well as for the Neo Japan crew? Why can't you just download the battle data into Burning Gundam? Why does he have to get into contact with Shining Gundam to do it? Which is ultimately what they say. He has to get into contact with Shining Gundam to download it. It is kind of dumb, isn't it? Like, you think that well, give us a backup copy. Bink, problem solved. And now he can do that.
You could just stick in a thumb drive there?
I know, right? Why didn't Domon have a card on him that had Shining Gundam's battle data? Like, why didn't he know that this was a thing? Why didn't Rain tell him that this was a thing? Why did Rain need to tell him anything? Because Karato could have just said, download the backup. Crap.
They just wanted Rain to have something to do.
They wanted Rain to have something to do, and they wanted to build tension. And it's kind of very, very clear at this point, right?
Yeah.
Here's the reason they did that, is because they want to have this tension moment. So Rain gets offered this Gundam tiara, which allows for her to pilot the Shining Gundam from halfway around the world. And oh, by the way, they also mentioned this in the episode. It has 0% power left. It doesn't have any power. So it's great and all that you can link up with it, but it's a dead battery. But somehow she manages to make the Shining Gundam crawl to the Burning Gundam and offers up her hand, and all the while she's also kind of connecting with Domon in this weird way. This is again why this was meant to happen, because she's seeing like all of the people that Domon cares about the most, and the last one, which we can presume is the one he cares about the most, was her. And she was never aware of that. Wait, your boyfriend and girlfriend, you didn't think that was possible? But no, she's like, no, I'm completely caught under unawares. What?
Yeah, I don't know.
What? I'm hurting my throat, but
you better not.
Yeah, so we have this epic moment that's really well animated of Burning Gundam and Shining Gundam holding hands, which is supposed to be Rain and Domon holding hands. That powers up Burning Gundam, and he is able to take out Master Asia, as well as have this other moment where you get to, in fact, it's on the DVD cover. I actually like how the scene was animated, or the cell was animated, of Burning Gundam holding Shining Gundam, and Shining Gundam is like, it's dead. It's officially dead. In fact, they leave it in the Guyana Highlands, with Master's hand in it. So it's basically like a glorified gravestone. And so let's get into that really quick. The whole moment of touching hands and then Domon supposedly destroying Master Gundam. Because he basically does a shining finger, so to speak. It wasn't really a shining finger. Throws him into the ground, and then as he's launching up into space, his verniers ignite Master Gundam and make it blow up. So, thoughts on that whole overall scene?
I still can't imagine how on earth she got that thing to move.
Right.
But, and that whole thing.
The power of love, let's just say it that way.
I know, and it just seems so mushy.
And I'm sure the Gundam creators are like, well, and probably even some fans of like, you are thinking way too much about this. Yeah, but that's the problem. Gundam is a sci-fi series. This doesn't make sense in a sci-fi perspective. And there is a sci-fi element to G Gundam, and so at that point I can ask these questions.
I mean,
I get why they did it. The symbolism's very powerful.
I know Domon cares about Rain, but it just still seems like
we didn't need to have this moment.
But he still seems like he's in that state of mind where it's like, you know, like I care about you, Rain, but do I care about like pursuing some relationship when I'm in the middle of a G Gundam?
Well, obviously, if she's the person he cares for the most, he wants a relationship.
I think maybe he's now rethinking the whole thing about seeing her.
I don't think he knows. I don't think he knows because we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, so you have a couple of really good, well shown moments. You finally get to see what Burning Gundam looks like. So we're going to do this really quick. We're not going to go into the specs of Burning Gundam yet because you haven't seen it really in action. What did you think of the look? Comparing Shining Gundam to Burning Gundam.
It was really cool.
I love the Burning Gundam's design and the aesthetics make it even better because you can actually kind of tell through the aesthetic of Burning Gundam. It looks more like a samurai. So at that point, like, it's even more built into a Japanese aesthetic. I love Burning Gundam as opposed to Shining Gundam. It's very well designed and also part of a Gundam trope where a main character or main characters will get an upgraded Gundam. And so at that point, it shows their growth in power. And at this point, Burning Gundam being given to Domon would make sense given his mastery of the hyper mode. So whether or not the Burning Gundam's capable of something like that, we'll never know. At least not until it fights. But yeah, it does look pretty awesome, right? So this starts up kind of the last arc of this episode. It is now not hours, it is minutes. He has minutes to get to Neo Hong Kong, to get halfway around the world. But it's okay, Domon has a plan. We haven't mentioned this and how silly it is that much, but to signify the Gundam fight, there's this giant wrestling ring that's around the Earth, which has these beam tethers. You know, kind of like how people can use the ropes to bounce back and forth. So what Domon proposes to do is use these beam ropes to slingshot himself to Neo Hong Kong.
Clever as...
Did you not think that this was just a tad silly?
Well, if you were desperate to get there in time, you're going to do...
I laugh at it every single time I see it. It is hilarious. It's like, that's not how beams work. Because every beam you've seen up until this point, it's basically that they work off of like lightsaber aesthetics. It's like, how did you know that wouldn't have cut you in half? He didn't. And so he gets slingshotted. But while he is flying back, and now it's seconds, he has seconds to get there. He has now been surrounded by 4 lights, all of which attack him. And we get to see something inside of them resembling Gundams. So we can only guess that these are maybe like future enemies. Just a guess. Do we have a guess as to who they might be right now? Like, did anything look familiar?
Of who?
Of the four lights that were attacking Domon.
I couldn't tell.
One of them looked like they had a horse to it. So it kind of makes me think like maybe it was Zeus Gundam. But there's not really a whole lot of evidence. We know that there's something resembling a Gundam inside of them, but we don't know much else.
Well, are you saying like all the Gundams that were trying to make it to the finals?
Well, the reason I'm saying the horse is because, remember, Zeus Gundam was like in this chariot thing, and it actually did have like mechanical horses.
Well, yeah, but are we saying that the Gundams that were making it for the finals were all decided to go back to go and attack Domon so he wouldn't?
Or maybe they were on their way there. We don't know. We don't know, in all honesty. They came out of nowhere. But it kind of sounds like they might be important, huh?
I'm sure if they were trying to stop Domon from making it out there.
Yeah, so at that point, you kind of get hinted at maybe like new rivals or new problems to solve. And Domon makes it with 1 second to spare.
It's the
trope. It's always the trope. If they have to deactivate the bomb, 1 second. If they have to get there in time, 1 second. So Burning Gundam qualifies and is allowed to participate in the final battle for the Gundam fight, for the 16th Gundam fight. And Rain and Domon get to have a nice, cute moment where, you know, Rain kind of acknowledges she didn't know that that Domon cared about her so much. And it's abruptly ruined by the Shuffle Alliance members coming up and giving Domon a bunch of crap. Yeah, it kind of hints that maybe there's something that's going to be coming out of the relationship between Domon and Rain, but I kind of agree with you. Not a whole lot has changed in their relationship dynamic. At least not yet. So that being said, what are our final thoughts on Bright New Star, Birth of the Burning Gundam?
I thought that was probably the best episode out of the 4 that we watched.
Yeah, I would say it's probably like a 4.5 or a 5. It's really close to a 5. It had a lot of really great moments, and yes, I'm criticizing the heck out of the whole downloading Shining Gundam's battle data, but the symbolism that they used for it is still very powerful in and of its own right.
Oh, yeah.
So
I can't remember which episode you start to see a part of Schwartz's mask get
that was the last
off.
one, and we probably should talk about that a little bit too. So after Schwartz gets that major attack, before Master starts going after Domon, he decides to kind of, quote, finish off Schwartz.
Yeah.
Although Schwartz does make it. But Shadow Gundam gets thoroughly thrashed to the point where Schwartz comes out and tells Master that he's wrong, and we see half of the mask fall off, and you can see that you could see Schwartz's hair, but you still can't see his face, kind of thing. But for some reason, Master is shocked at who he sees. He's like, "Wait, you're," and then we don't get a reveal on that. So, just take a guess. Who do you think he is? Maybe a previous pupil of Master Asia?
I don't know, but there's only... Well, unless if there was someone we haven't seen, but that hairstyle looks like Kyoji's.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay. But we saw Kyoji die.
Yeah, and there's only like 2 possible theories I can think of.
I see. Here's kind of my issue with it. I don't know if I agree, because we didn't see enough of his hairstyle to be able to say what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, it is an interesting theory. But then I have to question it, Andrea. We saw Kyoji blow up.
Well, yeah, that's why there's like maybe possibly 2 theories that I think of.
So that's one theory. What's your second?
Well, I don't have it. I meant, like, I just say there has to be a double or something, you know, like
Kyoji may have a twin. Is that what you're getting at?
No, well, not a twin, like there's a twin person, but maybe like a clone running around.
Okay, a clone, like how?
Well, we see that the DG cells somehow can form like a corpse or something.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know. Maybe it could have been just used as
we've
some kind
only
of a
ever
decoy.
seen them infect other people, but I guess, I mean, to lend credence to your theory, like, one of the three principles is self-evolve. Maybe it could be done that way. We just haven't seen it.
Well, yeah.
So,
because
it's an interesting theory. We'll see if you're right, but like, this is kind of my issue with it. You don't see enough of his face to figure that out, although Master's reaction does kind of make you wonder. That's why I kind of have the theory of a previous apprentice.
Well, yeah, because it's just kind of strange how it seems like, sure, you've seen Kyoji with a Dark Gundam here and there, but it seems like Master's the one who's pulling the ropes more as the top villain, even though they say supposedly...
Well, then in that case, I'm going to leave it up to the audience. Now, for those who have seen it, don't spoil, but because you've put time and effort into this. I don't want to have your hopes smashed.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Don't spoil it. But do you think that there's credence to Andrea's theory? Do you think it might be like a twin or a clone of Kyoji? I'm going to tell you, given what I have seen. I'm not entirely there, but it is an interesting theory.
Well,
there are grounds for it.
You would know because you've seen this show.
I have.
So then, I don't know.
What, did you think you were actually going to get me to tell you? No, I'm not. But yeah, let us know in the comments below if you guys agree with Andrea's theory. Do you think it's well founded, given the information that she has right now? So, yeah, that's and then I think we did our last grade on it. So let's go ahead and do our kind of final three questions on this, which is the best episode of the four that we saw.
I'm gonna say the fourth one.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Birth of the Burning Gundam is very good, with a very close second being the previous. When you see the hyper mode get unlocked, that is actually a really awesome moment. The worst episode that we saw.
Well, probably most likely the first one.
Yeah, because of the slow build-up.
I mean, I'm not saying it was bad, but, it's just like, when you're dealing with, like, filler episodes, and even though there are some that are just slow build-ups, but sometimes I think even a filler episode, if you have enough humor in it, or if you have something that really highlights it, it can probably make it a good episode. And
this one didn't really have that. It didn't.
It's just like, Pokemon, you have filler episodes.
What makes it worse is that we have that profound moment with Domon in the cave, which he abruptly abandons. And so at that point, it's like, oh, well, the only good thing that came out of this episode was for nothing, kind of thing. So that does help. That does help to the being the worst. So what we're basically saying is the best was Bright New Star, Birth of the Burning Gundam, and the worst is the final battle approaches only 3 days away. And so the final one that we have here, or the final question that we have here, what was the craziest or funniest moment that happened through these 4 episodes?
Like, just in...
Yeah, what would you deem to be either just freaking crazy or downright funny?
Out of each one, or just...
Yes, and I think it would be a good idea for us to each have a different one. Just so that we don't all of a sudden come into agreement. I'm going to say one of the crazier moments was downloading Shining Gundam's battle data, because it's just like, oh, such a plot hole. Such a friggin' plot hole. That was friggin' stupid. So that's mine, is downloading Shining Gundam's battle data through holding hands. What would be yours?
Let's see. Probably the craziest would probably be the whole when Schwartzbruder challenges Domon in the cave, and all of a sudden he manages
the sword deflecting the Tonfa.
Yeah, I'm like, how on earth could that sword just hold out?
Yep.
Especially the brute force of that.
Especially what we know of that sword. It is wrecked. It shouldn't have survived that, much less deflected Shadow Gundam's Tonfa. Yeah, that's another good moment. It's like, what the hell? Although it does kind of prove, like, Domon can do what Master can do.
Yeah, but it just seems like, I mean, it looks cool, but probably theory, you know, in theory, it probably would have not even survived a big blow from a Gundam.
Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there. Those were two really crazy moments for these episodes, and that's gonna do it for this episode of the podcast.
Didn't we say funniest?
Craziest and funniest is kind of
okay.
together.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a funniest moment?
I still like the whole George getting
yeah.
embarrassed because he's like,
what are you doing? It's not like you're changing.
You're peeking. Like, at first I thought, was he looking up her skirt or something? Oh.
No, but he was so far off, he couldn't have done that.
I know.
So,
when she say you peeked or...
If she was coming down the ladder, then maybe she'd have a leg to stand on here. But, yeah. Another funny moment was Rain trying to survive against the Dark Army and failing horribly. But that's just me, because we got that fight suit again.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Once again, let us know what you think in the comments below. If you guys want this to stay on YouTube, you need to share it with your friends and loved ones to get it out there, because I can only do so much. And if it doesn't match that, then I'm going to be moving it over to the RSS feed where loyal followers of the podcast can have access to it. So you guys determine that. If you like it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun shit. And when we come back for the next episode, we will begin the final round of the Gundam Fight. So for that, I think it's only appropriate for us to end the way we have ended this podcast in the last few episodes. It's time for Gundam Fight Final Round!